Carleton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'll set it up better for you next time.
Mr. Speaker, when governments pass legislation to make their own accounting rules that serve to obfuscate the impact of their financial decisions, their financial statements become unreliable. That is a direct quote from the Auditor General of Ontario. It is the first thing that she writes in her 53-page report. Mr. Speaker, this morning, Minister Fedeli moved that a select committee on financial transparency be appointed to consider and report to the House its observations and recommendations with respect to the report submitted by the Independent Financial Commission of Inquiry, and that the committee investigate and report on the accounting practices, decision-making and policy objectives of the previous government or any other aspect of the report that the committee deems relevant, and that the committee have the power to send for persons, papers, and things. And that's an important point, Mr. Speaker, that I will be referring back to. And that the committee be composed of 6 members of the party forming government, 3 members of the official opposition, and that the committee be authorized to meet at the call of the chair, and that it be given priority to use the Amethyst Room for its meetings, and that it shall present, or if the House is not meeting, release by depositing with the Clerk of Assembly its interim report by November 1, 2018, and its final report by December 13, 2018. Mr. Speaker, we campaigned on a promise to be efficient and to be reliable and to respect taxpayer dollars. And for one, Mr. Speaker, I am very excited and I'm very proud to see this committee is going to be working very hard to come up with an interim report in just 6 weeks. And to come up with its final report, Mr. Speaker, in 2 months. This is a government that's here to work hard for the people, Mr. Speaker. We have started early, we have been non-stop, and we're going to continue moving forward. Again, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to echo my statements from yesterday, my comments, and that after 15 years of Liberal stagnation, we need to get Ontario back on track. And this committee, thank you. And this committee, Mr. Speaker, is just another step in that process. It's just another way to move forward and to get things done. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have a very serious situation here in Ontario. First, our public accounts. The Liberals claimed that there was a $600 million surplus in the 2017-2018 budget. However, at that time, we learned that instead, there was a $3.7 billion deficit. Shame. Second, the Auditor General has approved and signed off on these public accounts in 2017 and 2018. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, this is the first time that she had signed the government's books with a clean slate in 3 years. Previously, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government had only a qualified opinion. And a qualified opinion means that there were outstanding, unanswered questions by the government. Mr. Speaker, how can there be any questions outstanding? Minister Fedeli said it best. This is accounting. The numbers either add up or they don't. There's no ambiguity. There's no gray areas. You look at the numbers, you add it up, and you need to balance the budget at the end of the day. So why was there any ambiguities? Why was the Liberal government refusing to answer questions and refusing to give the Auditor General all of the necessary documents that she needed in order to make a proper statement on the budget? And in fact, Mr. Speaker, we have found that this past week, despite their claims of a surplus, we are instead facing a $15 billion deficit. And that's shameful, Mr. Speaker, because that deficit is being paid for by the people of Ontario. That is money that people are paying in taxes, and instead of that putting that money towards services like healthcare or education or anything else, that money is going to pay off interest. The Liberals also claimed, Mr. Speaker, that their budget had $1.4 billion of efficiencies. However, the Commission's findings showed that, again, there were absolutely zero efficiencies in their budget. There was nothing in the budget relating to any potential savings, and there was nothing in the budget outlining any ambitious programs that could lead to such efficiencies. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the purpose of this select committee. It's to get to the bottom about how somebody could say that there was a $3.7 billion deficit when it wasn't true, or how somebody could say that there was a $15 billion deficit when it wasn't true. But the real issue, Mr. Speaker, is not about who said what, and it's not about whether or not the 3.7 was accurate or the 15 billion was accurate. The real issue is the breadth and depth that the Liberals went through to make sure we could never put this financial map backwards and put it back together to understand exactly and precisely what they did. Well, Mr. Speaker, their plan failed. And this select committee that we are going to be establishing, that select committee is going to go back and it's going to retrace the steps that the previous government made. And that brings me to that point I made, Mr. Speaker, about the committee having the power to send for persons, papers, and things. Because unlike the previous government, we campaigned on responsibility and accountability and trust. And we are going to get to the bottom of what happened. And, Mr. Speaker, the people that the committee calls, they will not be able to rely on ministerial privilege or confidentiality or anything like that. When this committee calls for a person or calls for a document or calls for anything else, they will have to bring it. It will have to be brought to them. Mr. Speaker, Premier Ford announced that initial commission of inquiry back in July, and it's not uncommon in politics for a new government to call the previous government's numbers into question. It's something that's done all the time. But, Mr. Speaker, what happened under this last government is very different than any other new government taking over. All you have to do is look at the Auditor General's last report on the state of government. She reviewed the Liberals' pre-election report on finances, and she concluded that their numbers were not a reasonable presentation of Ontario's finances. That's really serious to hear from an Auditor General, Mr. Speaker. She also followed up on why the numbers don't add up. She said the government is making up its own accounting rules. And then, Mr. Speaker, she used terminology like conceal, bogus, deceptive, and unreliable. Imagine that, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General called the previous Liberal government deceptive and unreliable. And I think, Mr. Speaker, that message was heard loud and clear, not just by our party, not just by the official opposition, but by Ontarians all across the province. And we see that in the election results, Mr. Speaker. We see that on June 7, Ontarians made a choice, and they decided that they deserve better, and indeed they do deserve better, than a government that is deceptive and unreliable.
If I could, just for clarification, as I recall, the Auditor General said the practices were that, not the government. Thank you.
The practices of the government were deceptive and unreliable, yes. And, Mr. Speaker, what we're witnessing right now is without precedent in recent politics, and this has never happened. When taken together, the conclusions of the Auditor General and the Commission of Inquiry represent a scathing indictment of how Kathleen Wynne and the Liberals abused the public's trust. They pursued a reckless spree of debt-financed spending and then deliberately deployed a series of accounting tricks to hide the resulting cost from the public. This result is the crippling hidden debt that is only now being brought forward. It puts our very future in jeopardy. And I echo the comments of my colleague from Kitchener-Conestoga. Bit of a tongue twister there. Thank you. I echo the statements my colleague made from Kitchener-Conestoga in that what they have done is putting our very future in jeopardy. I don't have 5 children myself, Mr. Speaker. God bless his wife. I can't imagine what she's gone through. But it's putting the future of all of our children, our grandchildren, and their grandchildren in jeopardy. The safety nets that we need are being used up, or were being used up, by the Liberal government.
I think she's watching right now, too.
So, Mr. Speaker, this select committee is going to get to the bottom of who knew what and who did what about it. And we're finally going to learn the truth, because that is what Ontarians expect of us, and that is what we owe it to them as their government. What happened, Mr. Speaker, should never again happen in Ontario. And in fact, it should never happen again anywhere in Canada. And their accountability, the Liberal Party's accountability, did not end on Election Day. It began on Election Day, Mr. Speaker.
Absolutely.
It began on Election Day when Premier Ford said, "People deserve answers," and we are here to ensure that the people get those answers, because we are a government for the people. Mr. Speaker, it's important as well to acknowledge the divide between what the independent legislative officers are saying that the government is doing and what the government says that it is doing. And that divide grew very, very large last year. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be part of the Committee on Public Accounts, and I look forward to working with the Auditor General and establishing a strong and positive relationship between government and between our independent legislative officers, because at the end of the day, we need to work together to do what's best for the people of Ontario. We need to work together to ensure that we are being responsible with their money, because it is not our money. It's not something that we can toy around and play around and spend at whim. This is the money that is earned from people who work long hours, sometimes back-breaking labor, and they need to pinch every penny, and at the same time, we need to respect that, and we need to make sure it's taken care of. And so that's why I support this committee and Motion 7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and I would remind all members when we're speaking of a former premier or another member of the